My parents threatened to pull funding for my wedding because sister wanted a year to shine with engagement photos, so I exposed her secret, and now, I've been mulling this over for a while, so I could really use your input. I'm 28 female, and I've been engaged to my fiancé Jake 30 male for about 8 months now. We've been planning our October wedding, and everything was smooth sailing until last week when my parents dropped a bombshell on us. For context, I have a younger sister, Mia 25 female, who's always been the golden child in our family. She's been dating her boyfriend, Tom 26 male, for about 2 years. My parents have always fawned over Mia, giving her the royal treatment in pretty much every aspect of our lives. I hate to sound bitter, but I always felt like there were certain areas where I excelled more than Mia, yet I never got any recognition. For example, back in high school, I was a straight A student and played on the volleyball team, while Mia was a cheerleader. Somehow, all my achievements were overshadowed by hers. Don't get me wrong, I know cheerleading deserves just as much respect as other sports, but would it have killed my parents to show the same enthusiasm for my events? It's safe to say I became accustomed to my absent parents and learned to expect almost nothing from them. Because of this, I distanced myself from Mia. My immature self blamed her for everything, even though deep down I knew it wasn't her fault. It wasn't until college, when I met Jake, the love of my life, that my perspective on everything changed. He helped me realize that I was worthy of love and deserved just as much attention as anyone else. Jake showed me that I was special in my own way, and if someone didn't appreciate my achievements, well, that was their loss. I also came to understand that it wasn't fair to put all the blame on Mia when it was actually our parents' fault. So, I decided to make an effort to rekindle whatever sisterly bond we had left. I started checking in on her more often and let her know she could talk to me about anything. Naturally, she was a bit hesitant at first, but she eventually became more comfortable opening up to me. We would talk about almost everything, no matter how stupid or serious it was. Even though our interests and life choices were a little different, I was happy with the fact that our relationship was slowly improving, and it felt like we were finally becoming the sisters we should have been all along. In fact, when Jake finally proposed to me, she was the first one to know. She was as excited as me and told me that she could not wait to help me plan my wedding. At that moment, I felt like everything was just perfectly working out. That's why I was caught completely off guard when my mom called last Wednesday. The call started innocently enough. Mom asked about wedding preparations, which was unusual because she hadn't shown much interest before. I should have known something was up. After a few minutes of small talk, she finally came to the point. Mia and Tom were planning to get engaged. As soon as these words came out of her mouth, I was so happy. My sister was about to get married, what could be better than this? But then I realized, Mom had said plan to get engaged. That threw me off a little bit. I asked Mom what she meant by that, and she replied that Mia had told her that Tom had been hinting at her about proposing, and asked her about her ring size, told her to buy a new dress, and all the other stuff. While these were pretty solid signs, Mia always had this habit of romanticizing everything and making things seem bigger than they actually were. I didn't want Mia to have her expectations soaring high, and then being disappointed. I asked Mom if she was 100% sure that Tom was proposing, and she said that she was. I thought this would be the end of the call, but another surprise was coming my way. But this time, I was not going to be happy. Since Tom and Mia were getting engaged, my mother asked me to cancel my wedding. I was stunned. I asked her to clarify, thinking I must have misunderstood. But no, she was dead serious. Cancel the wedding? Jake and I had waited 10 months because we wanted to have the wedding of our dreams and didn't want to compromise about anything. We had already put down deposits on the caterers and other vendors. Moving everything back a year would mean losing a significant amount of money, not to mention the hassle of rescheduling everything. I don't know what came over Mom and Dad, but when we were short on funds for the venue, they said they would pay for it. I felt like they did it to compete with Jake's parents, but I was too busy being happy about my parents finally taking an interest in my life to focus on their vindictive nature. But wait, this is not the worst part. You haven't heard the reason why I should postpone my wedding for a supposed engagement. Mom went on to explain that Mia wanted a full year of being the center of attention with her engagement photos and announcements on social media. I was beyond confused. Who makes their sister cancel her wedding and lose money over something as superficial as social media? I tried to reason with Mom and told her that I would not post anything about my wedding anywhere, but she said that if I didn't agree to postpone, they would withdraw all the money they had promised for the wedding. At this point, they were basically blackmailing me because their precious daughter was an attention seeker. I told my mom that this was ridiculous and unfair. We argued for a while, with her insisting that I was being selfish and inconsiderate of Mia's feelings. I kept asking her what about my feelings, but I got nothing for an answer, except the fact that if I went ahead with this, they would not pay for the venue. I was outraged. I didn't deserve this. All my life, I sacrificed things for Mia's sake, and now, when I was finally about to have the day of my dreams, that was also being snatched from me. Out of sheer frustration and anger, I did something I never thought I would do. I called Tom, Mia's fiancé, to tell him something about Mia that he didn't know. A while ago, when everything was fine, the four of us went on a double date, Jake and I and Mia and Tom. It was one of those rare occasions when we all had time to hang out together, and I remember feeling genuinely happy. We laughed and shared stories, and for once, everything seemed perfect. At one point during the evening, Mia and I excused ourselves to the restroom to freshen up. As we were fixing our makeup, Mia handed me her phone to hold while she washed her hands. Suddenly, a text message popped up on the screen. It was from someone named Mike, asking if they could meet again. My heart skipped a beat. I knew there was a guy named Mike that Mia had dated some time back, but I had assumed he was out of the picture. I couldn't resist asking, "Who's Mike, and why is he asking to meet again?" Mia immediately became squirmy. She tried to brush it off, saying it was nothing, just some old friend reaching out. But I could see the anxiety in her eyes. So, I asked again if something was going on between her and Mike. She answered that there had been some texting going back and forth, but it was nothing serious. When I asked if Tom knew about this, she just said that he didn't need to because it was nothing and rolled her eyes. I know that it's none of my business what my sister does, but Tom seemed like a good guy and loved Mia with his whole heart. So, I just couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling. I let it go because Mia assured me later on that she wasn't talking to her ex anymore. Now at that moment when Mia was trying to take my happiness away from me, my brain went haywire, and when I called Tom, I laid it all out, about the text I had seen that day. And if that wasn't enough, I told him that he should keep tabs on his girlfriend. Now when I look back, I know this is kind of wrong. Not the part of telling Tom the truth, of course, but the way I did it. But too late now. 2 days after I chatted with Tom, I got a call from Mom again, and let's just say, I was happy that I wasn't in front of her. She was screaming like a maniac, like a disaster had struck or something. But then her words hit me. I had made a big mistake. Apparently, Tom called Mia and told her that they needed to talk. Mia, who thought she was about to get engaged, got all dolled up. But when she finally reached the place, she was met with a very angry Tom. He told her about what I had said and asked her if it was true. Mia denied it at first, but then Tom asked her for her phone, and then she became defensive, telling him that he should trust her. Ultimately, Tom broke up with Mia. There was no chance Mom and Dad were going to forgive me for this. I could hear Mia in the background cursing me while Mom was also shouting at me. I kept apologizing and telling them that I only did so because they said that I had to cancel my wedding and I had put a lot of effort into that. Then came my dad's verdict that he was withdrawing the money that they put in for the venue. At that moment, I felt like I had lost everything. My parents, Mia, and any prospect of a wedding. I was sure Jake wouldn't have been happy with me either after hearing what happened. I tried to call Mia and talk to her about things, but she was not picking up any of my calls or seeing my texts. Jake was on a business trip at that time, so he wasn't aware that our wedding was jeopardized, partly by me. The stress was overwhelming, and I felt guilty for ruining Mia's relationship, even though it wasn't entirely my fault. When Jake came back from his business trip, I finally told him everything. To my relief, he was incredibly supportive and reassured me that we'd figure things out together. He made me realize that I was simply being honest and that I should have probably done that even earlier. About the wedding, Jake and I decided to go ahead with it, even if it meant cutting down on costs. We started brainstorming ways to save money. We reached out to friends and family, explaining the situation and asking for help. To our surprise, one of Jake's friends came to our rescue and used one of his contacts to get us an elegant yet affordable venue. We just have to postpone the wedding a little bit, which is honestly okay with me, given the current circumstances. Throughout this, I continued trying to reach out to my parents. Now while writing this, I definitely wonder why I did so, but at that time, I was just scared of disappointing Mom and Dad and the guilt was eating me alive. But they remained stubborn. They refused to attend my wedding if it went ahead as planned. The wedding planning continued, and despite the obstacles, everything started falling into place. However, we also noticed that many of my relatives RSVP'd that they would not be attending or they didn't respond at all. I didn't need to be Sherlock to guess that the news had traveled. According to one of my aunts, Mom and Mia made me seem like a soap opera villain who could not accept her sister's happiness and lied to sabotage it. They also switched the narrative and told everybody that Mia was already engaged and was set to marry, but later on, I got engaged and I wanted everybody's attention on me. Ignoring me was one thing, but lying about my character. By this point, I am just tired. I wanted to have a wedding where I looked and felt my best, but after everything that had taken place, I just could not. At the same time, I cannot let my parents get to me like they have for the rest of my life. They blame me for ruining Mia's life and accuse me of being jealous and spiteful. Mia, on the other hand, is devastated. She hasn't spoken to me since the incident, and I can't help but feel guilty, even though I know what I did was right. So, I am asking you guys, am I the a-hole for not postponing my wedding and telling Mia's boyfriend about her cheating? Update 1: It's been a few days since I posted, and the fallout has been intense. My parents have surprisingly started to talk to me, but not for the reasons you might think. They demand that I apologize to Mia and somehow fix the situation with Tom. They even threatened to disown me if I didn't comply. Jake has been incredibly supportive through all of this, reassuring me that we did the right thing and that we should focus on our upcoming wedding. Mia, however, finally reached out to me. She was livid and heartbroken, accusing me of ruining her life and sabotaging her happiness out of spite. It was a difficult conversation, and I tried to explain my side, but she wasn't willing to listen. She kept saying that I had no right to interfere in her relationship, regardless of what she had done. I lost my temper at this and asked her who gave her the right to even think that she could control my wedding plans, which, remind you, going on long before she was even close to getting engaged. Before I could even begin about the lies she and Mom had been telling about me, she hung up. As news of the family feud spread through the grapevine like wildfire, I received an unexpected call from Meg, a childhood friend I hadn't heard from in years. I had lost touch with Meg after moving out for college. Our communication was limited to social media. Mia, however, had maintained contact with her for a while longer, their friendship extending into their early 20s. Meg revealed another shocking incident involving Mia's infidelity, one that had occurred around a year ago. It was Meg's 25th birthday party. Mia was also there, but without Tom, her then boyfriend, because he was apparently on a trip as the night wore on and almost everybody was drunk. Meg noticed Mia becoming increasingly flirtatious with several male guests, including Meg's boyfriend. At first, Meg brushed it off as Mia's typical behavior. She had always been a natural flirt. But as the party began to wind down and guests started to leave, Meg realized she hadn't seen either Mia or her boyfriend for quite some time. Well, they were caught red-handed together in the other room. This was particularly scandalous because Mia and Tom had been together for 2 to 3 years at that point, and of course, she had played a part in traumatizing Meg. I was just surprised how was this hidden from Tom for so long. How did nobody from the party ever tell him about this? The incident caused a rift between Meg and Mia, ending their friendship. When Meg heard about everything, she thought that I should know that Mia didn't do anything by accident. She had become used to this and somehow always got away with it. I was stunned by this new information. I realized that Mia's cheating wasn't a one-time mistake but a pattern of behavior. I made only one request to Meg: could she do me a favor and give this news to Tom herself? I had my reasons for this. Jake, my fiancé, had visited Tom and he was not doing very well either. He was second-guessing everything, and while he did not say it, I am sure he must have been also blaming me for believing everything that I said. So, it would be much better if this heartbreaking news came from a person who was just not me. I also did not want to do this because I could not feed the fire regarding my being jealous of Mia. As soon as Tom got this news from Meg, he wanted to meet in person to talk things through. I agreed, hoping that we could find some resolution or at least clear the air. We met at a local coffee shop, and it was evident that he was still in shock from everything that had happened. Meg's info was just another shockwave that hit him, but he was glad and finally knew that he made the right decision. Tom also told me about how exactly his breakup with Mia happened. Mia was right to think that Tom was planning to propose to her. After our conversation, he confronted Mia about the cheating, and she eventually confessed. He was devastated but appreciated my honesty. He said it was better to know the truth now than to find out later, possibly after they were married. He admitted that he had sensed something was off in their relationship for a while but couldn't put his finger on it until I called. We talked for a long time, and Tom shared that he was planning to take some time for himself to heal and reevaluate his life. He thanked me for being brave enough to tell him the truth, even though it was painful. This conversation gave me a sense of closure, knowing that I had done the right thing by being honest with Tom. Despite this, the situation with my family hasn't improved. My parents are still siding with Mia, insisting that I was out of line and that I need to make amends. They can't seem to grasp why I did what I did, focusing only on Mia's heartbreak and not on the fact that she was the one who cheated. I've also received a lot of support from friends and extended family who heard about the situation. Many of them expressed their disbelief at my parents' behavior and commended me for standing up for what was right. It's been a mixed bag of emotions, but I'm grateful for the support from those who understand my perspective. I'm trying to stay focused on the positive and keep planning for my wedding. Jake and I have decided to move forward with our plans, regardless of my parents' threats. We've made some adjustments to the budget and are looking into ways to make the wedding special without their financial support. I know this isn't the end of the drama, but I'm determined to stand my ground. I refuse to let my parents' favoritism and Mia's actions dictate my life any longer. It's time for me to prioritize my happiness and future with Jake. Update 2. Hi people. My life just keeps getting more complicated with every passing moment. About 4 days after my first update, things took a dramatic and unexpected turn. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, it did. I was at work, trying to focus on my tasks, when I got an urgent call from Jake. He sounded panicked and told me to come home immediately. I hurried back, fearing something terrible had happened. When I arrived, I found Jake was clearly distressed. He handed me a letter that had been slipped under our door. It was from a lawyer representing my parents. They were threatening to sue me for defamation and emotional distress over the fallout from Mia's broken engagement. I was stunned. My own parents were taking legal action against me. The letter detailed how my actions had caused Mia severe emotional pain and had damaged her reputation. It demanded a public apology and a retraction of my statements about Mia's cheating, along with a substantial financial settlement. My parents have literally crossed boundaries to be as vindictive as possible. As I read the letter, my phone started buzzing. It was Mia. She was calling repeatedly, so I finally picked up, hoping to get some answers. Mia's voice was a mix of anger and desperation. She screamed at me, saying that I had ruined her life and that she had nothing left. She mentioned that she had lost her job because Tom had told their mutual friends and colleagues about her cheating. The news had spread like wildfire, and she was now the subject of gossip and judgment. She was considered to be problematic and that led to her getting fired. After receiving that legal scare from my parents, I say that Mia got what she deserved. I tried to reason with her, explaining that she needed to take responsibility for her actions, but she was inconsolable. She accused me of being jealous and vindictive, claiming that I had always wanted to see her fail. The conversation left me feeling drained and hopeless. Jake and I spent the rest of the evening discussing our options. We couldn't afford to get tangled in a legal battle with my parents, but we also couldn't let them bully us into submission. I think they knew that we were already balancing our funds for the wedding, so this legal battle would just put the nail in the coffin. The next day, I reached out to a lawyer for advice. He was shocked by the situation but assured me that we had a strong case. He suggested that we gather evidence of Mia's infidelity and the impact it had on her relationship with Tom. He also advised us to prepare for a counterclaim if my parents followed through with their threats. While all of this was happening, I received another unexpected call, this time from Tom's mother. She had heard about the situation and wanted to thank me for telling Tom the truth. She said that Tom was devastated but was grateful to have found out before making a lifelong commitment. She also mentioned that Tom was planning to move to a different city to start fresh. Her call was a small comfort in the midst of all the chaos. It reminded me that despite the immediate fallout, I had done the right thing by being honest. And my parents and Mia could act as wildly as they wanted, but that wouldn't change the fact that they were in the wrong. That weekend, things took another dramatic turn. My parents showed up at our house unannounced. They were furious and demanded to speak with me. Jake tried to keep them calm, but it quickly escalated into a shouting match. My father accused me of destroying the family, while my mother sobbed and pleaded with me to fix things with Mia. They repeated their threats to cut me off financially and to proceed with the lawsuit if I didn't comply with their demands. I stood my ground, refusing to be bullied into submission. I told them that Mia's actions had consequences and that I would not apologize for telling the truth. The confrontation ended with my parents storming out, vowing to proceed with the lawsuit. The next few days were a blur of legal consultations and emotional turmoil. Jake and I tried to focus on our wedding plans, but the stress was overwhelming. We started receiving messages from extended family members who had heard about the situation, some offering support and others criticizing my actions. I especially hate putting Jake in the whole drama, because he doesn't deserve any of this, but I'm also grateful for his support. Amidst all this, I received a surprising message from Meg, the childhood friend who had told me about Mia's previous infidelity. She offered to provide a statement about what had happened at her party, which could be crucial evidence if my parents decided to pursue legal action. With Meg's support and the evidence we were gathering, I started to feel a glimmer of hope. It was clear that this battle was far from over, but I was determined to stand my ground and fight for what was right. While I am at it, I also want to thank you all for becoming my support system at this time. It hasn't been easy, but you guys have given me a clear perspective. So, I will see you guys in a while. Update 3. Hi you guys, it's been another few days, and the situation has reached a boiling point. My parents and Mia insisted on meeting to discuss everything face to face. Jake and I agreed, hoping this confrontation might finally bring some clarity and resolution. We decided to meet at our house, where we could control the environment and avoid a public spectacle. When my parents and Mia arrived, there was a palpable tension in the air. They sat down, and I could see the anticipation in their eyes. They probably thought I was going to apologize and beg for forgiveness. But I had no intention of backing down. I started by addressing the elephant in the room. I told them that I understood why is everybody here today, but before we go any further, I want to make one thing clear: I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to lay out the facts. My parents and Mia exchanged confused glances, clearly not expecting this. I took a deep breath and began presenting my case. I started with the cheating incident that happened a few months ago. I asked Mia if it wasn't true that she handed me her phone during our double-date dinner, and I found out that she was talking to her ex-boyfriend, Mike, while mind you, she was in a very serious relationship with Tom. I then also mentioned that she said it was a one-time mistake. But we both knew that's not true, didn't we? I remember Mia's face turning pale, and she shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I continued, pulling out a folder filled with evidence. I let her know that I spoke with Meg, who hosted that party a year ago. She confirmed that Mia was caught cheating with her boyfriend. This wasn't just a one-time mistake, it's a pattern of behavior. I handed over the written statement from Meg. My parents and Mia glanced at it, their expressions turning from confusion to shock. But that was not all. I pulled out another piece of evidence. Mia had no idea that I had text messages from Mia to Meg, where she admitted to cheating and begged Meg not to tell Tom. These messages were time-stamped and leave no room for doubt. I placed the printed messages on the table. My mother gasped, and my father's face turned red with anger, though this time, it seemed directed more at Mia than at me. And then there was Tom's statement in a letter. He detailed how he confronted Mia after our conversation and how you eventually confessed. He also described the emotional toll her infidelity took on him and how it affected his decision not to propose. My parents were speechless. They stared at the documents in front of them, unable to refute the overwhelming evidence. Mia's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing, clearly realizing the gravity of the situation. And then we addressed the lawsuit. I firmly told my parents that they had threatened to sue me for defamation and emotional distress. But based on this evidence, it's clear that everything I said was true. They had no legal grounds to stand on. In fact, if they still pursued this, I had a strong case for a counterclaim. The room was silent. My parents and Mia were clearly stunned, processing the reality of the situation. I felt relief after so long, knowing that I had finally stood up for myself. I told Mia for the last time that I didn't do this out of spite or jealousy. I did this because it was the right thing to do. Mia's actions have consequences, and it's time for her to take responsibility. And as for my wedding, my message was simple: it was going ahead as planned. With or without their support, Jake and I will be getting married, and we won't let anyone ruin our happiness. I stood up, signaling that this was the end of the conversation, hoping this could be a turning point for all of us. With that, I walked out of the room, feeling a sense of closure. I know there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt in control of my own life. My parents and Mia can go ahead with their lawsuit, but now they know that I would be facing them head on and no good would come out of that. As Jake and I move forward with our new life, the support from our friends and extended family keeps us going. We know that the path to healing with my family and sister would be long and difficult, but we were ready to face it together. In the end, standing up for myself and doing what was right brought a sense of peace that I had been missing for so long. And as Jake and I look toward our future, I know that we're stronger for having faced these challenges head on. And this definitely wouldn't have happened without all of the suggestions and encouragement in the comments. I have learned a lot from you and your stories. Goodbye.